from Vienna, Austria, Avalanche, and from Dresden in Germany, Shooter Schulz. Together, they are blown up.
The big man is in there! The Avalanche! Shooter is out!
Look at the Avalanche! Look at the power of this! Look at the did you?
Our guest tonight helped to build a new generation of WXW wrestler, one of the most experienced trainers in the world of professional wrestling. He drove all the way through Eastern Germany in a company car. He was in a polder, Dr. Tom Prichard.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Blown Up episode 25. We're back in English. My name is Avalanche aka Robert Dreissker, and with me like always Felix Shooter Schulz. Hello Felix, how are you?
Hello Robert, hello dear listeners. I'm great. It's a great day. It's warm. It was a warm day today. How's it with you?
Yeah, the weather is pretty nice in Austria. I'm feeling good. And I'm very excited about today's episode.
Oh, me too, because honestly, I was kind of surprised that you made this happen. I was really surprised. Robert, what did you make happen?
Yeah, I reached out to my old friend, to Dr. Tom Prichard, who's been with WXW in 2014, and we've been in contact ever since, pretty much, like not on a regular basis, but every now and then. And I asked him if he would like to join us on the show, and he accepted, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, that was kind of a shock, to be honest. It's getting serious here. We're not just talking anymore with people like Julian Pace. No, we're going to the next level, to Knoxville, Tennessee. And Robert, let's see what good old Dr. Tom Prichard has to say.
So, well, here we are with Dr. Tom Prichard. Dr. Tom, hello, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us. It's a great pleasure for us. You've been with WXW in 2014. Yeah, time goes by so fast. How's the last 5 years been for you?
You know, the last 5 years have been such a storm and a whirlwind and a lot of things going on. I've moved from Tampa, Florida to Knoxville, Tennessee, and just within the last 5 years, I've been doing a lot of independent seminars, going around the world, going around the states here in the United States. And just recently, this January 2019, Glenn Jacobs, Kane, and I opened up the Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy right here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and that's been taking a lot of time, taking up most of my time actually. And we're doing 5 days a week there, and I'm training and still doing seminars all across the country. So that the last 5 years have really culminated into finally Glenn saying, why don't we just do a school here in Knoxville and bring people to our school instead of going everywhere? And that's still the plan. But in the meantime, I still had these other seminars booked, and I have to fulfill my obligation. So that's how things have been going, man. It's been busy, and things have been good.
Is it a dream come true for you to open up your own school?
In a way, yes, but in a way, as you know, doing a wrestling school takes a lot of time, effort, and passion and patience. So it was I've done this before. I had a wrestling school before in 2012 that didn't work out so well because it wasn't positioned. It wasn't positioned in the right building, and it just had a wrong vibe to it. This one, Glenn just won the Knox County Mayor also in December, and so it gives him some publicity, and you know, his name is associated obviously as one of the top stars ever in not just WWE but in professional wrestling. So yeah, that teaming with Glenn, partnering with Glenn, actually, I guess you would say it's a dream come true. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I enjoy it.
Did you move to Knoxville for the school, or did you move there and the school came after?
Yeah, no. We moved to Knoxville because you know, I got fired in 2012, and we were living in Tampa, and our daughter was going to the University of Tennessee here. So my wife wanted to move back to Knoxville, and I said, by all means. I've always liked Knoxville. It's a really nice place, and so yeah, we moved back earlier for our daughter, and then the school just happened to come along.
Oh. That's good.
Yeah, it was very good.
Glenn Jacobs, Kane, he's been a friend of yours for a pretty long time, right?
Yes. I knew when we started Smoky Mountain Wrestling many years ago.
Because I just remember on seeing pictures of you and him on Twitter when he was running for mayor or something. Yeah, for Knox County Mayor, and he won in December last year. So it helps, basically, if the guy who runs a business in the city is the mayor as well, right?
It helps. Well, here's the deal. Here's the funny thing about Knoxville. We have a county mayor, which Glenn is now, and we have a city mayor as well. Don't ask me how it works. I really don't know. I know Glenn has an office downtown as the county mayor, and then we have a city mayor and also has an office downtown. I don't know how you distinguish the two, but it does, man. But it does help that Glenn not only is known around town, but he's known around the country, and he knows around the business. And when we started, real quick, and I don't mean to go long on this, but when we started, we discussed it, and my thought was this. Glenn's going to be busy, and he's going to be taking care of business, obviously. I'm going to be doing the bulk of the training. Of course, Glenn has stopped by and will continue to stop by when he has time to check in and talk to everybody and lend advice. But we thought, you know, if I'm going to put my name on this and we're going to do it, I'm going to be the guy teaching, and we're going to do not 2 days a week, but we're going to do 5 days a week. And it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, from 6 to 10 o'clock at night. And then Sunday we'll go from 12 to 2 doing promos. So, you know, Glenn was on board with that. And this is a lot of hours for guys. You're getting 20 hours a week. Learning wrestling that most schools do 2-3 nights a week. So, you know, we thought that was a little different too.
Yeah.
Do you have like different classes, or is this like everybody comes in every day?
No, yeah, we have one class. I have a beginning, a middle, and an end for 12 weeks. And the first class was 16 weeks, but the next classes are 12 weeks. And we have a program designed for that. And everybody starts here and they finish there. So, yeah, we're not doing any advanced classes right now. I just had a couple guys email me, can I do an advanced class? Can you just do 6 weeks? And I said, no, we're not set up for that yet. I want to get established for this year. I want to get our students under us who have come and gone through the class and see what works, see what doesn't. And then next year we'll reevaluate and see what we need to do. But for right now, I'm going to teach all the classes, even with my limitations right now. I'm going to still be there at every class, and I'm not going to hand it over to somebody else and say, hey, you're teaching tonight. No, I will be teaching each class. So that was the deal too.
Can I have just one short question between? Have you voted for Glenn in the county, or?
Did I vote for Glenn? Of course. We campaigned for Glenn. We went knocking door to door with Glenn.
That's great.
We really did. We would go to the streets of Knoxville. We would get 4 or 5 cars on the weekends because he had his insurance company during the week, and he would go out and actually knock on doors. We would all knock on doors and ask people to vote for Glenn. But yeah, man, and it was a close race. I mean, it really was. But that's where we tell people, your vote really does count, because if he won by 8 votes or 36 votes or 38 votes, which is actually pretty close,
Yes.
that's the truth. Your vote counts, and doesn't matter how close. It just matters that you won, and he did win. So, and I think he's doing a great job. But yes, we voted for Glenn.
So how did people react when a 7 feet tall guy was knocking on their door?
It was great. A lot of people. I mean, he was already known around town. He had a local business, local insurance company, and people knew who he was immediately when they opened the door. Of course, he was a celebrity in wrestling around here, and Knoxville is in Tennessee, and people are there's a lot of wrestling fans in Knoxville, and he was very, very well known. So they reacted great. Some obviously told him they didn't know who they were going to vote for, and he just said, "Well, I hope you vote for me." So yeah, he won. It was great.
Wow. Maybe back to you now having a wrestling school. When did you start teaching really as a main coach in a wrestling or for wrestling? Was it with WWF back then, or was it before already?
No, it was actually with WWF back then. I had been, we went to WWF in 1993, I think, for SummerSlam against the Steiners. Jimmy Del Rey, Jim Cornette, and myself came in for SummerSlam. Pardon me. It was supposed to be just a one-time shot, and then we did, I think, Survivor Series, and went on. And finally we got signed. And then Jimmy left, and there was another gig they gave me that just came up, and it was the Body Donos. And I went through that deal. And in 1996, as in everything that happens in the wrestling business, time comes up to change or move on. And at that time, Vince was thinking about doing some in-house training for talent. WCW had the power plant, and WWF didn't have anything. So we started with a ring in the warehouse. And this came about because I was pretty much on the roster, but Chris Candido had broke his neck, and he was out. And Vince wanted to do this deal. So it was suggested that, hey, I had been to a wrestling school in Houston, Texas, and my brother went with me. And we got in there. I got in the ring, was just wrestling around with these guys, and they didn't know anything. And I said, hey, let me just show you how to do some stuff. So I demonstrated and showed him, and Bruce mentioned that to Vince, and Vince wanted to have a meeting and said, hey, I heard you can train people. What do you think about doing this? And you don't really know until you do it. You don't know if you're capable or have the aptitude or attitude to train people until you actually just go out and start training people. And that's how you find out. So I said, I'd like to give it a try. Sure. And I moved to Stamford, and they put the ring up in the warehouse of the studios, the TV studios in Stamford, Connecticut. And the first 3 students were Akamal Breck, Mark Henry, and Dwayne Johnson. And it pretty much just took off from there. We did some seminars and did some classes in 7 days, 7 days a week, actually, in Stamford for a while. And then eventually it got moved to Louisville, Kentucky. Memphis had one at one time. Cincinnati had one. There was a couple others, I think, too, until it finally wound up in Atlanta. And I was in Stamford and over all the developmental systems at one time. And again, I got released the first time, and Bill DeMott took over. I was sitting at home doing the same thing, seminars, wrestling, and things like that. then I got the call back in, I think it was 2007 to come back. And I went back to Georgia and moved to Tampa. And now I'm back here in Knoxville. So actually, the short answer is I started training people in 1996.
So you mentioned that you moved to Stanford. So was from that point clear that you won't be an active part of the roster from that point?
Yeah, but I still was. I was wrestling under a mask as Dr. X. I would go on the road with Occam. I would go on the road with Mark Henry. I think I even went on the road with The Rock, and would still suit out. And then my job was to go out there and get them over, obviously, and that was very cool with me because at that time I was 36 years old, and it was time. I mean, I still love the business, but I'd taken some bumps, and I already had a pretty bad neck then. In '96, and it was getting kind of crazy. So I could do that. I enjoyed doing that, but I was still, it was so cool because I was in Stamford, Connecticut, around the office and around Titan Towers and around all the buzz and all the activities. So it wasn't. I mean, it was even better than being on the roster for me because I got to be in all the got to see it firsthand what was going on.
Like in the beginning, how did you find your training style, or who influenced you?
I had a karate instructor when I was 10 years old, and I know him to this day. He's 70 now, and the way he taught, and especially the way he taught kids, and then I saw the way he taught adults, he had this style, and part of being a coach is encouraging and giving your students confidence. You need to explain and you need to talk to them. You need to know, there's not too much of a distance between a pat on the back or a kick in the butt, and you have to figure out who needs what and when. That's not always easy to figure out, and sometimes it's not just showing them the move, but it's giving them the attitude and giving them the confidence that they can do the move. Sometimes all people need is to be said, come on, you can do it. Good job. Great. Let's do better next time. Let's get it. And it's been proven time and time again. I had a lady, the first class in our JPWA, who never watched wrestling at all. She watched Total Divas, the reality show, but she'd never seen one wrestling match in her life. And I looked at her and said, why would you want to do this? And she's a school teacher right now. And she said, I'm bored with my life. I want to do something else. I've seen it on Total Divas. I saw what the girls went through. It just looked very, very interesting to me. About week number 12, which would be the end of a standard week now, she finally got her footing in the ring. You know how when it just kind of flows and you don't know why, but it just flowed? Yeah. And we're doing 10 repetitions of a maneuver or a spot. 10 in a row. Now think about that. You got to slow down. You got to breathe. You're doing 10 reps of the same spot. And I'm talking her through it the whole time. Some people will say, well, that's repetitive and boring. The way you learn this is you do repetition, repetition, repetition. So I kept encouraging her, and she would cry on me. She cried on me 3 times during the training process because she was getting frustrated. Just working the left side, doing the top wrist lock, into a hammer lock, headlock, fireman's carry, drop toe hold, single leg pick. Just these little intricate things that aren't that intricate to us, people have to think about for a while. And I think that's what a good coach does, is try to simplify it, or at least get it to where they can understand it and know who to pat on the back and know who to kick in the butt and know how to motivate somebody. And I think that, because that's what my coach did. The guy, my karate instructor, my sensei, was Bill Gray, and he was in Houston, Texas. And I always remember, there were times when I would get so intimidated and frustrated, he would just put his hand on my back and say, it's all right, just calm down. Step back, bring your right foot up, kick, bring it back. Okay, I would mess it up again. He said, all right, look, one more time. And he would do it in that calm manner instead of getting you more jumpy and more nervous by yelling at you. So there are times I yell and there are times I scream, but I try to do it strategically to where I'm not doing it to intimidate. I'm trying to do it to make a point. And after that, I bring it back down and say, all right, good. That's what we need to do. So that's my style or that's my way of coaching, is understanding I don't know every move in the book. I am not that much of a creative guy, but I can motivate and I can try to get you to do your best and I can get you to do things you never thought you could do. I've done it many, many years.
One thing one big thing I took away from your seminar here with WXW back in 5 years ago was a quote of yours, as you mentioned, be a student of the game.
Yes.
How do you explain this to a girl who's never even watched a wrestling match?
Yeah. That's a great question because we sat there, check this out. I would pull up matches. The first time I pulled up a wrestling match on my computer, we were at the school, and I said, "Let me show you what a match looks like." And I was explaining charisma. I was explaining what we do in the ring is actually just a small part of what really matters. You have to have charisma, you have to have personality, you have to be able to talk, you have to be able to communicate with the crowd, with the people you're trying to bring in. I said Dusty Rhodes was one of the greatest promos of ever. He communicated, he was an entertainer, he understood, and people would come to see him. I pulled up a match with Dusty Rhodes against superstar Billy Graham in Madison Square Garden. And she's watching, and I noticed she's bored, and I said, "Is this something you would watch if you might have turned it on earlier?" She goes, "No, not really, but how does it end? When do you know it's over?" And I looked at her. I said, "Well, somebody has to win." And she looked at me back and says, "Okay, how?" How? I said, "Okay, you have to pin your opponent's shoulders to the mat, or he gets disqualified by doing something illegal." There's many ways you can win a match, but that's the basic one. And I was amazed that she didn't know. She didn't know when it was over, how it ended. So once we got past that and we watched more matches and she got a little bit into it and understood the entertainment value of it and also understood the part where we are entertainers, but at the same time, this is, for lack of a better term, because it really is a good term, sports entertainment. It's very, very physical. It's very, very athletic. But you have to have something that people are going to watch and want to get involved in. The business has changed so much, obviously, from when I started and from what got me interested in it. But it's still the same principle. You're still trying to draw people and draw eyeballs to your product. And why would someone want to watch you work? Why would someone want to listen to you cut a promo? And that's what I tried to explain to her and try to show her. So that's how I explained it. And then as she got along with it and she found out how fun it actually can be, this girl, she weighs 135 now. She lost 150 pounds. Okay.
Wow.
She was yes. So she had already accomplished that goal. It's tough, man. We all know what it's like to try to lose 5 or 10 pounds. Try losing 150 pounds, man, over the course of over a year and a half. And she'd done all these hurdles and done these challenges. She's a math teacher. She's 36 years old. She's coming to this wrestling deal. I mean, are the chances pretty well, the odds stacked against her? Yes. And I told her that. But what I saw in her is her determination, and she's not going to quit. And I really appreciated her guts and her style. She got so frustrated because she wasn't grasping it. She wasn't picking it up. But as she got on, and she still has a long way to go, don't get me wrong, and she knows she has a long way to go. And that's why she's continuing to do what she's doing. And anyway, that's how I got through to her, and that's how I try to get through to most guys. I have a kid right now, real quick. Out of these 12 we have this session, a kid came 30 hours from India with his mother and his sister, and they left him here. They got him here. They stayed a week, and then they went back to India. They left him here alone to train with me 5 days a week in Knoxville. This kid's 18. He turned 18 on one of our class nights, and I bought him a cake. And he came to me and says, I don't eat eggs. So what do you mean? It's just my religion. I don't eat eggs. I said, well, okay. So anyway, he didn't eat the cake. But anyway, that's, he's 18 years old, so all he knows is WWF or WWE. And I think anything, when you watch this today, it's your perception of what wrestling is, especially WWE. If you see that, you just think that's what wrestling is. So, anyway, so I'm trying to tell them, yes, what you see on TV is what wrestling is, but you have to have a foundation. You have to have the basics and fundamentals. Otherwise, you won't have anything else. You have nothing to build on if you don't have a solid foundation.
Mm. You told already, or you said already, that the wrestling changed obviously a lot over the last, I don't know how long you were into this, 40 years now, I guess?
Yeah, actually
Wow.
40 years, over 40 years, yeah.
Wow.
I really real quick. I started taking pictures for Gong magazine when I was 12 years old, man. And I'll be 60 in August. So I've been doing this pretty much my whole life.
So you said you're from Texas, right?
Yes.
And then did you start in Texas with wrestling, or were your parents wrestling people, or so you did karate? Was there like a...
Yeah, no. My parents, no, man. I was born in 1959, so I came up in the 60s, and my mom and dad were pretty much. My dad was a career Army guy. He retired when I was born after 22 years in the Army. So I mean, the way we got to go to wrestling, Bruce and I were born in El Paso, and we started watching wrestling Saturday afternoons, but the live wrestling show was on Monday nights in El Paso, so we really couldn't go. That was a school night. But, we would just watch it on the Saturday afternoon, and then when I was 10 years old, we had to move to Houston. And we did, and we found another wrestling, and that was Paul Bosch in Houston Wrestling. And their wrestling was on Friday night. So my mom began taking Bruce and I to the wrestling matches every Friday night. And my mom met some friends and finally got to know people around there. But Bruce and I were hanging around. We would make ourselves known and make sure Paul Bosch knew who we were and told him we wanted to be wrestlers. And Paul always tried to discourage me. But I mean, there was a lot of things that happened because we were around it from the time I was 10 up until the time I actually started wrestling at 20. Where I got we got in, that way. We back then it was breaking in. It was like getting in the mafia. You had to know somebody who knew somebody, or you had to prove your way, and everybody was kayfabe, and nobody really talked to you until they saw you around so much and figured, well, hell, you got to become smart by osmosis. Just you can't watch this stuff every week and believe what you see is actually real. But at the same time, I saw guys every week who would go out and believe it and give a hell of a show and leave that element of doubt. But, at the time when I saw that, I was studying it, and talk about student of the game. I was studying how these guys walked, talked, acted, perception. When they were in the arena, they never broke character, sometimes even outside the arena. And I tried to pick up on their mannerisms. I tried to pick up on just their vibe, just their aura, just everything about them. And that's kind of how it all came about. And there's a lot of stories along the way of how I eventually got my break. But I had my first match in Bryan, Texas, but my very first territory was in California, in Los Angeles. and I stayed there a year. And I was actually supposed to go to Portland, Oregon during that year, and I should have, but I didn't. I was having too much fun. But that's kind of how it started. I started in Texas and also wrestled around Louisiana and Oklahoma, some of the other territories from October to January. And then the end of January, I went to L.A.
What do you think fascinated you, like as a kid, on wrestlers? Why do you were so captivated by them that you wanted to study them so intensely?
It was such an outlaw culture. They were doing things outside the natural and normal life of human beings. It was so cool. They would wrestle on TV. They would go to town. You would hear the stories of the announcers talking about this guy just got back from a tour of Australia, a tour of Japan. They went to these exotic places and they wrestled. And they wrestled in this ring in front of people, and people were cheering them on or booing them, and they could get on and make these outrageous statements. They could do these things that they would lock normal people up for. They weren't normal. It was so outlaw and outside the realm of what you did. You know, my dad got up every day and did a job. God, that just seems so horrible to me. I didn't want to do that. You know, this just looks so fun. This just looks so mysterious. It just looks so great. How could you go out there, two guys who supposedly hated each other, but at the same time, they would go out there and Terry Funk, the Funk family were Bruce and my idols growing up. They were the heroes in El Paso. And you would just watch these guys go do these incredible things, and guys in masks. There's my dog. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah. Do these incredible things, and it was just a cool thing. So as a kid, especially, I was looking at it and going, man, this is a lot better than a regular job. And it fascinated me because how could you do that and get away with it? So. That was just to me it was a real cool thing. It was outside normalcy.
Yes, that sounds
about
right from my perspective. Can I ask what do you have for a dog? As we heard him,
it's a Chihuahua.
Oh,
a Chihuahua dog, a little vicious dog. Yeah, but he was sitting here with me, and then my wife just walked in, so he barks at her.
That's okay. Greetings to your wife from us, please, from Germany and Austria.
Yeah.
Robert.
Yeah, you mentioned that the business has changed. It has changed a lot. Do you think it changed for the better, or?
Well, I tell you what. In some ways, yes, because the deal was, it really was an outlaw business where you were driving in a car every night, drinking beer or doing whatever and having fun, and nobody was holding anybody accountable. You would just show up and do your job, and as long as you were there an hour ahead of time, everything was fine. The day was yours. And after you did that, you would go to a bar, or you'd go drive, or you would do whatever you wanted to do, whatever your vice was. And now, in the last few years, let's just say in the last 20 years or 30 years, with death, guys being sick, guys having health problems, Vince has pretty much cleaned it up with drug tests and health. They have doctors now. I mean, they have people and coaches and trainers to make sure the guys are healthy, like it's an actual professional business, professional company. Not that the other companies weren't, but it's changed for the better in that when the young guys come up and they have to go to the performance center or a school, especially with WWE, they talk about finances. They talk about making smart choices. They talk about it's good to have an education. It's good to not drink every night after the matches, And it used to be you could go to the show and find somebody and have a party afterwards, and maybe you can still today. I don't know, but you could find trouble afterwards too. So it was a lot of fun when there wasn't so much regulation. But now, They've made it better in the sense that the boys are healthier and a lot smarter. Is the action always the best? Not necessarily, but at the same time, it's a different day. People want different things, so you can't have the same kind of match you had in 1960 these days. Although I would beg to differ that some of the guys in the 60s could have a 2019 match because they were that smart and they would know how to adapt. But I think in the sense that the guys are healthier, I think that they're smarter, I think they're more athletic. I think in those elements, it's better. But at the same time, I don't want to say the action's not as good because I think it's a generational thing. I think it's an era thing. You have to go back to that certain era. This is 2019. That's the era of what people want to see. And real quick, Paul Bosch used to say, I like to go fishing, and I also like strawberries. But when I go fishing, I put worms on the hook because that's what fish want. It doesn't matter what I like. I'm trying to catch fish. So it doesn't matter what I like. Vince is trying to draw fans, and I don't know that he's succeeding today or not with the ratings, but I don't know that they care about TV ratings because people can just watch on demand and anytime they want now on their devices. So it's a different lifestyle. It's a different culture altogether. Where back in the 80s, real quick, the culture was drugs, sex, and rock and roll. That's changed because of all the casualties and because of all the health issues, because of all the problems that came with it. And we've learned from our mistakes, or at least some of us have. So, you got to change with the times. You're going to be left behind, I think.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you, because you just talked about WWE nowadays in 2019, what is your view on this WWE AEW thing? Have you seen the AEW show, or have you heard about it, or what's?
I have, and I wasn't sold on it right away, and I don't know how long, but at the same time, there's a buzz, and that's a good thing. So whether they succeed, or not, they've already succeeded just by running the shows they have. I didn't give TNA 2 weeks or a month, but I guess they're still running, and that's great. So these guys, AEW, had the balls to go out and actually break away and say we're going to start our own company. And if you want to come. They got guys like Jericho and Ambrose and or Moxley, and other guys will be on the way once their contract's up. Yeah. So I think it's great to have somebody somewhere else to go, and I think it's great that the guys are looking at it as a viable option, because there's no excuse me, there's no pardon me, there's no other place. The independents are great, but you really need TV, and you really need to have somebody that's stable in backing it, and creative people, and I think they do. I think they have all that in AEW. So I'm excited to watch it grow, and I hope it does.
Because I always had the feeling who am I? But like in the last year, I had the feeling that most of the wrestling know-how is somehow grouped around WWE, and that's why I was like worried that maybe is there enough like creative people that understand wrestling so much. But thinking about it, I think there are enough people out there, like you, for example, that understand it. Or what's your opinion about that? Is there like how's the know-how distribute?
Well, here's the thing. I really do believe you have people that can think outside the box, and I wasn't actually too sold on the Young Bucks when I first saw them. And I don't know, but it's obvious now they have an audience, they have a niche, so they have a creative mind. I think Dustin, and I think Cody both have creative minds. Chris Jericho is unbelievable, and Moxley I think also has a pretty creative mind. So that's where it starts, and also starts if you do your marketing research, which I believe they're doing too, finding out what the people are into, finding out what the fans of today are into. they don't want the same old, same old. And I think I read last week where Terry Funk said, WWE isn't fresh. AEW is fresh right now, so it'll get some eyes and curious onlookers to see what they're into, and whether or not they sell to them or not, whether or not they buy it, it's up to speculation, I guess, because they're not going to give up, and that's a good thing. And Tony Khan has the money, and that's a good thing too. So I think there are enough creative people. I think there are enough people who care and want to see something else happen besides having everything centered around WWE. And that way again, it's good for everybody. It's good for WWE to be challenged and be pushed. And it's good for AEW because the guys can go and be creative and not worry about making the wrong people mad. And I guess you actually do. You have to worry about that all the time. But I think AEW is going to give them a little more flexibility to experiment and try things. And if it works, it works.
Did you? So you said you've seen AEW. What do you think about Dustin and Cody match? Because I thought, I don't know. I felt like I was sitting in a time machine somehow.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And once again, I'll say this too: what's old is new, but also what's real is real. What's passion is passion. And I think that's what those guys did. Is they put realism and passion into it. And that's the difference today, I think, with a lot of guys. You have to feel it and you have to believe it when you step in the ring. Back in the old days when I was growing up, that's what you had to do. You were still in character, you felt it, and you believed in the kayfabe and all that other stuff. Well, that's how Dustin and Cody are too, and that's what the dream was. You brought that realism, you brought that passion into your match and into your life, and that's the other element they have, and I think they've even made the statement: you need something for everybody on this card and on this show. So I believe they're going to give it for the old school fans, and they're going to give it for the new school fans too. Is there a place for the Young Bucks comedy in there? Well, there's a place for it, and the people are buying it right now. Will they continue to buy it? We'll see. I mean, I thought, once again, to pull it off the way they pulled it off was pretty cool on many, many fronts and many levels, because they still love the business, and it's obvious. You can tell when somebody's just going halfway, and you can tell when somebody really wants us to work and they're putting their heart and soul into it. And I believe they are. They're putting their heart and soul into it. And that's what's been missing, is the emotion and feeling. Because you remember when you watched wrestling and you felt it. And I remember it. And that's what Dustin and Cody too, they remember that too, and that's what they want to bring back.
The thing is, I was actually surprised when I watched it, and Felix can tell you that as well, because I was like texting him like how great the match was. I don't know, it was the first time in really long time that I really felt something when I watched it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just felt so. That match somehow felt so huge to me. Like, I also had to rewatch it like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, they definitely did something really great here.
Well, that's real quick. That's what wrestling should do to you, and that's what got me into it in the beginning, where you felt for these guys and felt for the people on the screen or in the ring. You felt emotion, you felt passion, you felt something that stirred you, that moved you, and that's, they come from the loins of the American dream. They lived it. I mean, a lot of the stories you hear, I mean, this was a crazy business. Growing up for Dustin was different. Growing up for Cody was a hell of a lot different. And there's a lot of true feelings. And I always say this in school: think, shoot, but work. And that you got to think about that for a minute. Think, shoot, believe it. but go out there and work. And that's not everybody can translate that. And that's what Dustin and Cody did. They believed it was a shoot. And they're brothers, yes, but they have two different mothers. But their fathers are the same one, and it's just the way they were brought up, man. They were brought up differently, and there was issues, and there's always brother issues in this business, man. Don't let anybody fool you.
Have you and your brother had brother issues?
Oh my God, yes, man. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Anybody I've ever known who's had a brother in this business, family in this business, there's always going to be that, because that's how this business works. There's just issues. There's things that come up, and it all goes back to I think family. And in any kind of family, you're gonna have problems. But man, you add this crazy business on top of it with all the toxic elements that come up. It certainly does. It really throws a wrench in your relationship. And I think Cody and Dustin have probably had those things. They've been very close. But it's easy to bring up, because they can, if they don't have it, they can always draw from somebody else's issues and problems. And the way they went about the match, the way they constructed it, the way they did it, you felt it because you could feel the emotion there. And the American Dream was one of the most emotional guys. I wouldn't say emotional guys, but passionate guys I've ever met. And I got to know him so well in Florida. Just to hear him talk about nothing and everything at the same time was so fun and so incredible, to hear this guy who could tell you a story and get you engaged and get you fixated on absolutely nothing, but it had substance, if that makes any sense. He has a great story for everything, and even if it's nothing, he'll make a story out of it, is what I'm trying to say. He can make a story out of anything, and that's a great storyteller. Take an almond, a nut, and tell me a story about it. And that's what Dream could do. That's what Dustin can do. That's what Cody can do.
When you say things shoot but work, does this wacky kind of comedy has space in this philosophy of wrestling? Do you know what I mean? There's like,
yeah,
I don't know, the Joey Ryan stuff, or who else is out there doing this wacky kind of comedy wrestling? Or is this, it entertains the people, but it's kind of a parody of wrestling? I don't know. Is it...
Well, yeah. I'm not a huge fan of that, and that has its place, I guess. I mean, I guess there's some people who enjoy it. I mean, that's cool, but the underlying theme. And if you watch the matches like Cody and Dustin, or even Undertaker and Goldberg, which I just watched earlier this afternoon, apparently Goldberg knocked himself out, I guess, during that match. But the matches to communicate and cross over to where you make someone feel, whether it's crying or elation or your heart beating fast. See, I remember as a kid being excited watching wrestling, because I didn't know who the booker was. I didn't know who the promoter, I mean, I knew the promoter, but didn't know who the booker or the writer or creator. They didn't have writers back then, they had bookers. But because the guys went out there and they believed it, and they made you believe it. Even if you thought it was a work or fake or phony or fixed or whatever you want to call it, you had those guys. You had the guys like Johnny Valentine. You had the guys like Terry Funk, Dory Funk, Jack Briscoe, Buddy Rogers, Lou Thez, who'd go out there, and they may not believe in wrestling, but they would believe in them. And that was what I mean by think, shoot, but work. Are there places for the comedy guys like Joey Ryan and the Young Bucks and things like that? Well, maybe there are. Now, it's obvious there are. They're paying for them. But paying to see them, I mean. But you can't have a whole card like that. I mean, when the circus was around, you had the clown act, you had the lion act, you had the high wire act, you had different acts for different taste. And that's what you need to find. You need to find the balance. and hopefully AEW will find the balance. But think, shoot, but work, I think, is the underlying theme for the business. You have to believe it to get anybody else to believe it.
That's a great line, by the way. Think, shoot, but work. That's a great one. And when you said like that, you have, as an audience, you have to believe in the wrestlers and all this. I think it's getting harder with every year because of the internet. I think the internet changed so much for how people consume wrestling, how fans, they interact even more. They talk about gossip and I don't know what, leaks and stuff like this. What do you think the internet did for wrestling?
Yeah, I agree. There's just a couple guys who still have some of the mystery to him. Like Moxley has an air of mystery to him. He will give interviews. I read the interviews. I get it. But he still keeps some of his stuff close to the vest, which is great. Lesnar is another guy you can believe in and is real. And when you step in the ring with him or you see him go to the ring, you know he's real. So I think the internet has definitely, you can't go back to when there was no internet, obviously, but at the same time, that has really thrown the cover back, opened the curtain, and let everybody see what's going on. So it's not like it used to be. That's why you have to go that extra measure, I think, to get people involved. And the way to do that, again, is believe it yourself and not get jaded and think, shoot, but go out and work. So that the internet is always going to be around, and it's going to be one of those things, a necessary evil, obviously, but it's still up to you. I tell guys this all the time. Watch what you put on Facebook. Watch what you say on Twitter. Don't give everybody all the information about you. Keep that element of mystery. So it's up to them, up to the guys, I think.
I was about to say that. I think it's also a part of how people involved in the business are like behaving. That kind of changed how fans react to stuff. For example, I don't know, like a simple headlock nowadays is just just a transition move. Doesn't really mean anything.
Well, here's the deal. It's not necessarily the moves you do. It's in between the moves. So if you watch how the show or how the match progresses, you still have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You still have to know where you're going to get to. You still have to have your finish, and you have to know how you're going to get there. So sometimes I see this all the time with the guys who are planning everything in the back instead of going out there and just feeling it, because nobody knows how to feel it. Really, they don't. And the guys who do are older and can't necessarily get in there and do it anymore. But you're right. The way the guys behave, the way the guys have to get on Facebook or Twitter and put themselves over, or put the guy they worked with over and tell you how great the match was. And it's a different culture. It's a different thought process today. Back then it was trying to keep everybody in the dark. Well, everybody knows what it is now. But the thing that makes you different when you walk down the aisle, you get in the ring, is you believe it. Not like you're pretending to be a wrestler. You have to go out and be a wrestler. You have to go out with that. You have to have the look. You have to have the attitude. You have to have that vibe. I like that vibe when you go through. And Lesnar has it. Moxley has it. John Cena has a vibe. John Cena is a superstar, and he knows what he is. But even when you watch him, that's John Cena, and you know he's a star. You have to carry yourself like a star, and that being a star doesn't mean you go out and tell everybody your business. You don't go out and let everybody know what's going on. So, and not too many guys know how to do that these days.
I got a question here. You mentioned Moxley, Cena, and there's a couple other guys that you trained that today are wrestling's biggest superstars. Do you think a key to those people becoming superstars is also that they were in developmental developmental system, and people didn't know them before. Because
I don't
nowadays I feel like NXT is a great thing, but I don't. Is there any major WWE superstar who's been known on NXT before? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, that's changed too, because it used to be that it would come from nowhere, and we didn't have the developmental system as a third brand or second brand or whatever. Now it is, and that's cool. Again, it's different strokes and different day and time, but you're right. There was mystery to them. They weren't seen. They weren't exposed already. So they were new when they came to the roster. But I think developmental, because there was nowhere else to go now, it's a necessary evil, because they're still under one building, learning one way. I get that. But the guys who know, and the guys who have their own style and are brave enough to step out, like a Seth Rollins. Seth had his own style in FCW. Again, I'll go back to Dean Ambrose, had his own style in FCW. Roman Reigns found his way in FCW. So I don't know how they're doing it necessarily every day in the Performance Center, where they're under one roof learning through various guys. They have great coaches there. But I do think, you have a great point when you say, were they stars because they went to the developmental system? I don't think because they went to the developmental system, that's what made them stars. I think they went to the developmental system, like Cena, for instance, and Lesnar, and even Shelton Benjamin, because Lesnar and Benjamin were partners in OVW in Louisville, Kentucky. They trained in a hellhole. They trained in a horrible, dirty little building that was great for wrestling training, because you were there to train and you knew it. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't nice, but it was great for wrestling. And it was the attitude. You were there to wrestle. There was no air conditioning, there's no heat. You gutted it out, and you knew if you loved the business. And John Cena was going to be a star. Brock Lesnar was going to be a star, because that's what they did. They didn't go there because it was a nice place where they could work out and hang around and eat lunch. No, they were there 4 hours a day to get it and go. And that's what they did. And the ones who were dedicated enough, the ones who were talented enough, actually did. So you're right. I mean, it's just the way things have evolved. Everybody knows everything about everybody, and it makes it harder. But at the same time, it just makes you. I think it should make them being the boys, more creative to stand out, because they know of all the obstacles they're going to face.
Do you think that might be, maybe the wrestling market might be a little fed up, because there's it feels like there's a big show from WWE every day, right? Is it SmackDown, Raw, NXT, NXT UK, whatever? Is it too much at some point, or?
I think so. I think there is a time when you're bombarded and just it all runs together. There was a time, and I think we're in that time right now, when nobody is special right now. There's nobody who stands out, who is just the guy, except Brock Lesnar. Other than Brock, you do have your stars. You have your Seth Rollins. You have your Daniel Bryans. You have your stars, but the guy who's standing out are very few and far between. So I think it's one of those things where it just kind of becomes white noise almost. So it's really hard to get into a lot of times, and I think we're in that period.
Okay. Before we come to an end here, I have we traditionally ask some questions that have nothing to do with wrestling, just with you as a person. Like, for example, have you watched a good movie you enjoyed, or read a good book that you think people should know about?
Well, actually, Fighting with Your Family was the last movie I saw. Have you guys seen that yet?
I haven't seen it, no.
No?
Yeah, man. Well, it's about Paige, from WWE, and the reason I went to go see that is when she came to FCW. I think she was 17 or 18 at the time, very young, but she always impressed me. It was always a very nice lady, so I wanted to see how they portrayed her life on screen, and I thought it was a very, very cool movie, man. So that's actually the last movie I went to. I haven't had a lot of time to excuse me, to read any books because I'm pretty busy from early morning to late night.
What do you do to relax away from wrestling?
Ooh, man, I don't. That's the thing right now. It's been pretty full since January. I'd like to. My schedule was I was getting up in the morning, going to the gym. Yeah, when I say in the morning, I got up at 3, was in the gym by 4. Now I'm leaving class by 10:30 at night, and I'm going to the gym to try and get at least an hour in. Sometimes I do an hour and a half, but that's just if it's a crowded night. So, but when I get to the gym, and I'm finding out, and I got this from Rip Rogers, because I was talking to him about, man, I can't go in the morning and I can't go at night because I'm just dead. And Rip said, no. You need to go at night and get your endorphins going and just get a great workout, and you're going to feel so much better and you're going to sleep better. And I didn't want to believe him, but I just took that step, and he's right. I went to the gym after class, and forced myself to get a workout after the second set. I'm rolling, I'm rocking, and I feel so much better because it's like, if I don't get it in, then I feel horrible. I'm not trying to bodybuild. I'm not trying to do anything else except get a pump. I'm just trying to get in and do it. Just stay active. So I think going to the gym is the best way to relax for me.
Okay.
Yeah, really, man. I mean, that's it, because the rest of the day is pretty much taken up.
I just wanted to know one thing, because I know Robert here is a vivid reader of wrestling books. Are there some you can recommend except for your own?
Yes, definitely. I would definitely recommend Gary Hart's book. Have you read The History of the NWA yet? That's a great book. Gary Hart, even Paul Bosch's book, but Paul Bosch should have a hard time to find. But The History of the NWA and Gary Hart's book are both very, very good. Terry Funk has a great book too. Yeah, I mean, and do you know about the plane crash with Buddy Colt and Bobby Shane and Terry Funk? Or not Terry Funk. Bobby Shane, Buddy Colt, Gary Hart, and Dennis McCord. Do you know anything about that?
I have never heard of that.
Right. Okay, because it was in the 70s. Bobby Shane was Bobby Shane was this great worker, and he was. I saw him as a babyface in Texas, but then he turned into a heel. He's going to be a great. He was in line, man. He was a genius. Anyway, he died in a plane crash, and they had this. Buddy Colt wrote something, or they interviewed Buddy Colt, and in a little manuscript called "Whatever Happened To," and I'm trying to get that. I'll get that eventually. But if you're interested in the history of the business, read about some of these guys who came, and it's not really the same unless you have some reference to them, I guess. If you don't know who they were, or you didn't have a chance to see them or hear about them, it is kind of hard. But there's another guy named Jack Pfeffer. Have you ever heard of Jack Pfeffer? What about The Fall Guys? That's another book, another great book. It's from the 30s. Have you heard of The Fall Guys?
I heard about that book on Jim Cornette's podcast.
Yes, definitely. I would definitely recommend that too, because it talks about the Goldust Trio, and it talks about Pfeffer, and it talks about all these things that happened way back in the early 1900s, man. And it's just amazing how history has repeated itself, and how these guys have stayed alive for so long, and how the business has just continued on even after all these scandals. So.
And definitely a book I would recommend is yours, the Pro Wrestling Curriculum, right? Advice for up-and-coming pros to get to the next level.
Yes.
It helped me out a lot, and I just want to highly recommend this to all up-and-coming wrestlers who wanna do the next step.
And also, they can get that on Amazon, and they can also get an autographed copy by going to drtomprichard.com. But if you don't mind, before we move on here, if I could just let you guys know, for the Wrestling Academy, if they want to contact anybody over here, just ask any questions, they can go to jpwrestlingacademy.com for all information and find out about what we're doing there at school, too. So I just want to mention that before we forgot.
Sure. I mean, you get guys from India, so why should guys from Europe?
Well, unless they go to Chris Raber's school in Austria as well, which I recommend the Bambi Killer School too. He has a very nice, intimate school, and I've been there too, and I like Chris very well. When you see him, please tell him I said hello. He was very, very cordial on my trip when I came to WXW, and I took the train to Austria and did the seminar there too. So, but there really are some good books, some good references, and there's some good people out there training. The point is, if you're looking for a school or you're looking to be a wrestler, do some research, find out where they've been, find out who they are, find out if they've trained anybody that's done anything, and that goes not just for us but for everybody. So, very, very cool.
So to close things off, we have blownup.fm. That's the Spotify playlist where our guests can put a song on it. Do you have anything that comes to mind for our Spotify playlist?
Ah, man, for Spotify's like music and stuff, or
yeah, exactly.
See, you know what? My wife does the Spotify. My wife does one other thing. She has to do all that stuff for me because I'm not. I know it sounds crazy, but you hear a lot of the guys say, "Well, I don't know how to do it." It's not that I don't know how to do it. It's just I have my CDs and stuff. But I'm more of a. Here's the deal. I like classic rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to give you any song or anything to look up on Spotify, I think one of the greatest songs, and I'm a big Aerosmith fan, but I'm also a big AC/DC fan, and I always thought Shoot to Thrill was one of the greatest songs to listen to on the road, and or Have a Drink on Me was another one too. It was just Back in Black came out when I first started in the business, and it's still popular today in 2019. From 1979 to 2019, you can still hear Shoot the Thrill and Have a Drink on Me on classic rock stations. So I'm sure Spotify has it too.
Yeah, it has it.
Yeah, no doubt. You know what I mean?
Great. Dr. Tom, thank you for being on the show. It was a big pleasure to have you. Thank you for the great chat. And I hope to see you soon down the road.
Well, listen, let me just tell you this. I always enjoy hearing from you, man. I really like getting the DMs on Twitter, and I like hearing about your success as well. And anytime, I would love to come back. I appreciate it. And Felix, thank you very much for being Robert Swingman today, too.
Thank you very much.
Anything I can do for you guys, just let me know. I will help you in any way I can.
And we are back from this very interesting talk with Dr. Tom Prichard, Robert. And honestly, I was a little nervous in the beginning because I never met him in real life, as you did, but wasn't necessary. He was a great guy.
Yep, he definitely is. Like I said before, I owe him a lot. Like, he helped me out big time in the early stage of my career, and I have nothing but respect for Dr. Tom Prichard. So I'm glad you enjoyed the talk.
Yeah, I am too. And people, if you enjoyed this talk too, there will be more great talks in the future, as there have been in the past. So please, if you like what we do, like, subscribe, comment on our social media, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. We're everywhere. Follow us, please. Please, please.
Yeah, we're basically on every major outlet that's available for podcasts, and also on social media, Facebook, Twitter. And is our MySpace page still active?
I don't want to talk about our MySpace page. That scar is still too fresh.
All right. I think we're going to wrap things up for this episode of Blown Up. And we see you guys next time. Thank you, and bye-bye.